Hello everyone, this is the owner of the Horror Docs channel. I would like to say that if my content left you only positive emotions after watching it, you could subscribe, thus helping the channel to promote itself, and I will have more desire to improve and make quality content. We are almost 1,000 subscribers already, thanks to everyone who participated in this. Allison had always been a cautious woman. She lived alone in a beautiful house in Boston, but she never felt entirely safe. She had installed multiple security cameras around her property, and she always made sure to lock all her doors and windows before going to bed. Despite her efforts, she could not shake off the feeling that she was not entirely alone in her house. One evening, while she was reading a book in her living room, she heard strange noises coming from the basement. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but the sounds persisted, growing louder and more persistent. She tried to ignore them, but the curiosity and the fear of the unknown forced her to investigate. Allison grabbed a flashlight and made her way to the basement. As she descended the stairs, she noticed that the door leading to the basement was slightly open. She had never left it open, but she thought that maybe she had forgotten to lock it. As she entered the basement, she noticed that everything seemed to be in place. The old furniture, the boxes of Christmas decorations, and the washing machine were all there. She turned around, ready to go back upstairs, when she saw him. A strange man was standing in the corner of the basement. He was tall and had a long beard, and his clothes were ragged and dirty. Allison froze, not knowing what to do. The man looked crazy, and she could see the madness in his eyes. Suddenly, the man rushed towards her, screaming and waving his arms. Allison tried to run, but she stumbled and fell. The man was on top of her, punching and kicking her. Allison fought back, using all her strength, but the man was too strong. He seemed to enjoy hurting her, and his laughter was echoing through the basement. Allison was trapped, and she thought that it was the end. She closed her eyes, waiting for the final blow, but then she remembered something. She had installed a panic button in her bedroom that would alert the police if she was in danger. She had never used it before, but she had tested it, and she knew it worked. She managed to break free from the man's grip and ran to the stairs. She heard the man behind her, but she did not look back. She made it to her bedroom, pressed the panic button, and locked the door. The police arrived quickly, and they managed to apprehend the man. He was sent to prison, but Allison was left with severe psychological trauma. She could not shake off the feeling that the man was still out there, waiting for her. She started to have panic attacks and nightmares, and she was afraid to leave her house. Allison's friends and family tried to help her, but they did not understand the extent of her trauma. They thought that she just needed time to heal, but Allison knew that it was more than that. She needed professional help, but she did not know where to find it. My opinion. The story of Allison teaches us the importance of being cautious and prepared for unexpected situations. It also shows us that seeking professional help can make a significant difference in our recovery from traumatic experiences. It was a typical summer evening in Brazil in 2019, and 17-year-old Isabella was home alone. She had been studying for her final exams all day and was finally taking a break by watching a horror movie. The movie was quite scary, but she enjoyed the adrenaline rush it gave her. As the movie ended, Isabella got up to stretch her legs and turn on the lights. Suddenly, she heard some strange noises coming from another room. At first, she thought it was just her younger brother coming home early, but when she went to check, she was shocked to find two men in their early 20s who had broken into her house. Isabella froze for a second as the men turned to look at her. They were both tall and muscular, with tattoos and menacing expressions on their faces. One of them held a knife, which he waved around threateningly. "Give us your money and valuables, or we'll hurt you," said one of the men in a gruff voice. Isabella's heart was pounding in her chest as she looked around for a way to escape. She knew she had to act fast if she wanted to survive this ordeal. Thinking quickly, she ran towards the basement door and locked it from the inside. She could hear the men shouting and pounding on the door, but she knew she was safe for the moment. She took out her phone and dialed the police emergency number. "Hello, I need help. There are 2 men in my house who are trying to rob me," she said in a panicked voice. The operator on the other end of the line calmed her down and told her to stay on the line while they dispatched a police team to her location. Isabella felt relieved to know that help was on the way, but she was still scared out of her mind. She huddled in the corner of the basement, waiting for the police to arrive. The minutes felt like hours as she listened to the men trying to break down the door. But finally, she heard the sound of sirens in the distance. The police had arrived. The men tried to make a run for it when they heard the police, but they were quickly apprehended. Isabella emerged from the basement, shaking and crying with relief. The police comforted her and took her statement, and the men were taken into custody. The case went to court, and Isabella had to testify against the men. It was a traumatic experience, but she knew it was necessary to ensure that justice was served. She described in detail what had happened that fateful night, and how she had managed to escape from the men. After weeks of trial, the men were found guilty and sentenced to several years in prison. Isabella felt a sense of closure, knowing that they wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else. Although the incident had left her traumatized, Isabella was determined not to let fear control her life. She became an advocate for women's safety and spoke out about her experience in the hopes of raising awareness about the dangers of home invasions. Years passed, and Isabella moved on with her life. She graduated from college with honors and started a successful career as a lawyer. She even wrote a book about her experience, which became a bestseller and inspired countless others to speak out about their own experiences with violence. Looking back on that fateful night, Isabella realized that she had found the strength within herself to survive the unthinkable. She had overcome her fear and emerged stronger on the other side. And although she would never forget what had happened, she knew that she had the power to turn her trauma into something positive. My opinion. The story above teaches us that even in the most terrifying situations, we can find the strength within ourselves to survive and overcome our fears. It also reminds us of the importance of being aware of our surroundings and taking measures to ensure our safety, such as locking doors and windows. Lastly, it inspires us to speak out about our experiences and advocate for change to prevent others from going through the same trauma. Sunny afternoon in a quiet Texas suburb, and Cheryl Torrance was looking forward to spending the day relaxing and reading her book. After finishing her chores, she sat down on her couch and let out a content sigh. She was finally going to be able to unwind and escape into the pages of her book. However, little did she know that this day was going to change her life forever. As Cheryl was reading, she heard a knock on her door. She got up to see who it was, and to her surprise, it was a man she had met a few months ago. She didn't expect him to show up on her doorstep unannounced, but before she could even say hello, he burst into her house and attacked her. Cheryl was horrified as the man gagged her and tied her hands. She tried to fight back, but the man was too strong. The pain was unbearable, and she thought it was the end. As the man left her lying on the floor, helpless and traumatized, Cheryl struggled to pull herself together. Eventually, she managed to free herself and call the police, but it was too late. The man had already fled, and it was clear that Cheryl had been brutally assaulted. The police worked hard to find the man responsible, and he was eventually caught and sentenced to prison. However, for Cheryl, the nightmare was far from over. She found herself driving around often, reliving the traumatic experience over and over again. The physical scars began to heal, but the emotional scars were still fresh. Carol went through a phase of depression and anxiety. She found it difficult to trust anyone and had lost faith in humanity. She felt like a victim, and it seemed like there was no escape from the pain and suffering she was feeling. But despite all the darkness, there was a glimmer of hope. Cheryl began to realize that she wasn't alone. Her friends and family stood by her side, offering their support and love. She also sought out therapy, which helped her to process and heal from the trauma she had experienced. My opinion: the story of Cheryl Torrance is a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. No matter how dark and difficult life may seem, we all have the strength to overcome trauma and find happiness again. It is important to seek help and support from loved ones, and to never give up on the journey towards healing. Steven Steinberg was an ordinary man living in a suburban town in the United States. He had a wife and 2 children, and worked as an accountant for a firm nearby. Stephen was a hard-working man who always made sure his family had everything they needed. One day in 2015, Stephen woke up early in the morning, like any other day, to get ready for work. He said goodbye to his wife and children and headed to his office. It was like any other day, or so he thought. Returning home in the evening, Stephen noticed something odd. His front door was slightly ajar, and his heart ached. He had a bad feeling something was wrong. When he cautiously entered the house, he noticed that many valuable items were missing, including cash, jewelry, and electronics. The intruder had robbed his house and taken everything of value. Stephen immediately called the police, and they quickly arrived at his home. The police officers inspected the house and found that the intruder was very cunning. The thief had installed hidden cameras throughout the house to spy on Stephen and his family while they were out of the house. The police discovered one of the cameras hidden in the bathroom, and it became clear that the thief had been recording their family showering. The discovery of the hidden cameras shocked Stephen and his family. They felt insulted and unprotected. They did not know who might have done such a thing or why. The police began investigating, but at that point, they had no leads. The next few weeks were difficult for Stephen and his family. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed and were constantly looking around. They had lost their sense of security and didn't know if they could ever get it back. But one day Stephen got a call from the police. They had caught the thief, and he had confessed to everything. It turned out that the thief was a young man who was struggling financially. He had heard that Stephen was a successful accountant and thought he must have some valuable things in his house. The thief broke into the house and realized he could make more money by selling Stephen's family records. So he installed hidden cameras throughout the house to spy on them. The thief's confession was a relief to Stephen and his family, but it did not relieve them of the trauma they had experienced. They lost their sense of security, and they had to work hard to regain it. Stephen installed a security system in his home, and they became more careful about who they let into their lives. My opinion: in conclusion, the story of Steven Steinberg's burglary and the discovery of hidden cameras in his home is a cautionary tale. It highlights the importance of being vigilant about the world around us and taking steps to protect ourselves and our families. We never know who may be watching us and why, but we can take steps to ensure our safety and peace of mind. Stephen and his family learned this lesson the hard way, but in the end, they became stronger and more resilient. Emma Phillips was a bright and ambitious 19-year-old woman living in Canada. She had just started her first year of university and was looking forward to the future. However, one day, her life was turned upside down when she was attacked in her own home. It was a typical afternoon when Emma decided to stay home alone to catch up on some work. She was completely unaware of the danger lurking outside. Suddenly, she heard a loud noise, and before she knew it, a man had broken into her home. Emma panicked and tried to fight off the intruder, but he was too strong for her. The man brutally beat her and left her lying on the floor, unconscious. When Emma woke up, she was in a hospital room. She had no idea how much time had passed, but she knew something was wrong. Her head was pounding, and she could barely move. The doctors told her that she had been in a coma for several days and that her injuries were severe. Over the next few months, Emma had to undergo several surgeries and rehabilitation sessions to recover from her injuries. She had broken bones, cuts and bruises all over her body, and she struggled to walk or even hold a pen. Emma's family and friends were by her side throughout her recovery, but it was a long and painful process. Meanwhile, the man who had attacked Emma was caught by the police. There was a long and difficult trial, but eventually he was found guilty and sent to prison for a long time. Emma felt relieved that justice had been served, but she knew that her life would never be the same again. As Emma slowly started to recover, she began to feel a mix of emotions. She was grateful to be alive and to have her loved ones around her, but she was also angry and scared. She struggled with PTSD and anxiety, and the thought of being alone in her own home terrified her. Emma decided to take matters into her own hands. She enrolled in self-defense classes and started to learn how to protect herself. She also became an advocate for women's safety and started speaking out about her experience. Emma wanted to make sure that no one else would have to go through what she had gone through. My opinion? The story of Emma Phillips is a powerful reminder of the importance of resilience and determination in the face of adversity. It teaches us that no matter how difficult our circumstances may be, we have the strength within us to overcome them and turn our struggles into sources of inspiration and motivation. Above all, it highlights the need to stand up for ourselves and for others, to fight for justice and safety, and to never let fear hold us back from living our lives to the fullest.